not the skin, you
Why
know.
do you think it comes out as allergies in one dog, out the skin in one dog, inflammation in the ear in another dog, and kidney disease in another dog?
Yeah, that's a great question. And nobody knows the answer to that. That's probably in the genes. And before anybody, leaps to the conclusion that what I'm saying is that disease is genetic, genes only determine where in your body your disease is going to manifest. It doesn't make you diseased.
Mhm.
What you feed your dog makes your dog diseased.
Yeah.
And where it shows up is a matter of the genes that he got from his parents and their parents and on and on. I don't know why my why my cockapoo had ear issues. I can only assume that he had a big flap. It tends to keep air from evaporating. It gets very moist in there, and the waste piles up and invites bacteria to clean it up. And so we can conclude that big ear flaps probably contribute, but they're not the primary cause. The primary cause is the waste that's coming through the ear canal.
Right. And why is it not a good idea to resort to treating it to help relieve the pain and suffering that's happening?
Well, that's a balancing act, because there are things you can do that will relieve the symptom a bit without stopping the process that's happening. And um, if you give something internal, and that stops this process from happening, and that's what the medical industry, the pet sickness industry is famous for, stopping the symptom and forcing those wastes to
Mhm.
not come through. um, they're just going to stay there. They're going to stay put, and they're going to have to come out another way. So even though that's the way most people handle disease, it's absolutely the wrong way. What
Mhm.
you need to do is just stop the waste from coming in and allow the body to clean out. And like we covered in the last video, when stuff gets liberated back into the bloodstream from its stored locations on the body, it triggers those same symptoms. It can still come through the skin. It can still come through the ears and eyes.
Mhm.
Um, typically you don't get symptoms that are as severe as when the stuff was still going in every day, but it can be severe for a while, and you just have to know and have faith that it's a temporary process.
Yeah.
And some dogs their symptoms have been suppressed with drugs for years, so they not only have all of those wastes that have been retained, they have very harmful substances that the body has also stored along with them, that are going to cause irritation and inflammation when they do come out. So that's why we see
Yeah.
so much redness and inflammation, and you know all of those you know horrible
Yeah.
symptoms when
A
dogs.
lot of I've noticed in the Facebook group that it seems to me that most of those who have really harsh detox symptoms are the ones who have taken those drugs, like the preventatives and the Apoquel
Mhm,
and all
mhm,
those types of drugs. Very
mhm.
nasty drugs,
Yes.
cause a lot of
Yeah.
problems.
Yes, just chronic use, repeated use of the drugs, and they burden the body so.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it can make a very tough detox for the
Yeah,
dog.
and there's ways to mitigate the speed at which detox occurs to some
Yes.
degree with diet.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what we found is that plant foods go through the system very quickly and easily. And meat, even though dogs need meat, it's a very energy intense, it's a very labor intensive thing to digest,
Hmm.
and it moves slower through the body. And it's sort of a bridge between, like, especially if a dog's coming from strictly being fed PMR or barf diet or whatever, a high meat rotation is actually closer to that previous diet than it is to a high plant rotation. So it's sort of a bridge, provides a bridge between the two, and can slow down the detox. On the other end, you have, fasting. If you fast your dog, that's the fastest way. So they might get severe symptoms, but it'll be very short lived. So it's a
Yeah.
balancing act that only the owner can decide
Hmm.
on.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about the Facebook group is there are over 7,000 people in there, and they do help each other
Mhm, mhm.
through those periods. And for the most part, most dogs don't have severe symptoms. It's the few that have really used a lot of drugs, especially that I've noticed have been more
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, and owners can see these detox symptoms as a sign of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't understand that it's not necessarily a sign of trouble, and in fact, it's probably not a sign of trouble,
Mm-hmm.
it can strike fear in them. So people really do have to educate themselves. They have to work on that. And that, that takes a little bit of reading and understanding,
Yeah.
rethinking things.
Right. And then once you're through it and you've actually seen everything firsthand yourself, there's no going back. It's like
Right.
you're completely convinced, you know?
Right. Yeah. You have that
Yeah.
experience.
What about puppies? Because they're a little different. First of all, they haven't been on the planet that long, so they haven't really had a chance to build up a lot of toxicity. Do you recommend the same thing for puppies that you do for adult dogs? And at what age would you change things up?
I do. I think it'd be great if all puppies were weaned onto, regular food instead of commercial dog food. But usually when people acquire a puppy, the puppy has been weaned onto commercial food. So you do have a bit of detox when you start all of that. And that takes various, forms too. And it can cause, there's a lot of fear around sick puppies
Mm-hmm.
because of the parvo boogeyman thing that the
Yeah.
vet industry has laid on us. But, it's fairly short-lived if you do things right. And with puppies, you kind of have to experiment a bit even more because they're learning potty training, and plant foods create lots of potty and lots of potty trips. So you have to balance that against what you want to feed. I wanted to feed my puppy lots of plant foods when she
Mm-hmm.
was growing up, but it, surprised her when those plant foods would come through fast, and she didn't know what to do about it, and we had accidents. So I went back to feeding her just prey model raw,
Yeah.
low fat prey model raw for the first year. And she's a puppy. Puppies eliminate very quickly. It's hard to overwhelm a puppy, and that's a testament to their resilience, that so many of them do get overwhelmed by being weaned onto commercial food.
Mm-hmm.
But so I did that with my puppy. I've heard from other puppy owners that they didn't have to do that. They could feed plant foods and it didn't interrupt the potty training issue.
Potty training is a big deal, though. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that is definitely a reason to feed meat more frequently for puppies.
Right.
Um, you can't talk about nutrition without talking about the keto craze. I know that that was a big deal when I had a dog who had cancer about 5 or 7 years ago. And I even contacted one of the keto places that designed a diet for him. It actually ended up facilitating his death, and now I know why. Can you explain why that diet is so harmful and disease causing?